guys, welcome to my channel. My name is ReadingBear and I hope you are ready for some more stories. And today, we'll take a look at some new entitled people content. If you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comment. And now, let's dive right into the stories.
The first story is titled Old Geezer Clearly Doesn't Know How Long It Takes to Cook a Ton of Food. This happened decades ago, when I was in my 20s. A couple of friends and I went to the local fish and chip shop, also known as takeaway, here in New Zealand. This takeaway, like most, was run by a Chinese family. This will become relevant later. When we got there were a few people milling around in that I've already ordered and now I'm just waiting for my food mode and about one person waiting in front of us. The three of us stood in line. The person in front finished paying for their order, but before we were served the phone rang and the bloke behind the counter took a lengthy order. I wasn't exactly listening in, but I was within 2 meters and it was impossible not to get the idea that the caller was ordering half of the menu. One of the things it was impossible not to hear was when he said that the order would be ready in 20 minutes. When the bloke hung up and posted the order up to be filled, we placed our own not insubstantial orders and went to join the others in the "I've ordered and am just waiting for my kai" pattern. Kai is the Maori word for food. We lose people as their food becomes ready and they depart with their newsprint wrapped packages of delight. Then, about 15 minutes after the phone call, this tall skinny old bloke, whom we shall call the OC, for reasons that I think are fairly obvious but you can pretend that it means old chap, if you like, turns up and asks if his phone order is ready. The bloke behind the counter, BBC, checks and says it's not ready yet. This is where, in New Zealand culture, you say, okay, pay for the food you ordered, and go and join the others waiting for their order to be completed. The OC, however, elected to lose his temper and say that it should be ready now. BBC basically reminds him that 15 minutes ago, he said it would be ready in 20 minutes. The OC was having none of this and was getting quite ranty and saying, perhaps I should just forget about it then. At your typical Kiwi takeaway fish and chip shop, the deep fry vats, burger prep area and gas hobs with the woks are all clearly visible from the waiting area and you can see the staff cooking your food. So I could see looks of absolute horror on the faces of the staff working behind the counter as they've got a metric ton of the OC's food in the process of being cooked back there and the OC hasn't actually paid for any of this yet. BBC says, no, your food's nearly ready. OC, it's ready? BBC. Everything is cooked except the burgers and we're doing the burgers now. OC. So it's not ready, is it? And then launches into a tirade about how the food should be ready by now, as if he had ordered only a couple of things and he were the only customer in the store. 2 things about me at this point. I love languages and learn phrases from them from my friends whenever possible. Of course, quite often, those phrases include the ones you don't use in mixed company, unless you're a New Zealander or an Australian, of course. One of the languages in which I knew a few words, including, not for mixed company, words, was Cantonese. Told you the fact that the shop was run by Chinese people would become relevant. I do not like entitled idiots mistreating serving staff. From my view, the OC has phoned up and ordered a literal fortune's worth of food and been told 20 minutes, and he's now threatening to walk out without paying for the food because it's not ready in 15. This is just not done. So I cut the OC off, mid-rant, by loudly and angrily yelling a Cantonese phrase that pretty much translates to, mother ducker. Possibly, horse ducker, if I got the inflection of one of the words wrong. I was glaring daggers at the OC's back, but I could see all the staff beyond him abruptly look up in shock at my outburst and then, realizing who had shouted and at whom, they all grinned. My loud interjection did stop the OC mid-rant but he didn't look around. I'm pretty sure he knew exactly who was being yelled at. I doubt he understood Cantonese but he probably could recognize angry in any language. In the silence that followed, BBC reiterated that the burgers were almost done and the meal would be ready. I had already decided that if the OC walked out of that shop without paying, I'd be following him down the street and confronting him about it, letting him know in no uncertain terms that you don't do that sort of thing. Fortunately, the OC then decided to pay for his food and wait, like the rest of us, so I didn't need to chase him down the street and discuss his parentage. The next story is titled The One Time I Pulled the "I'm a Veteran" line. Language warning. To look at me now, most folks would not expect me to be a veteran. Liberal viewpoint, very round, long hair, beard and a preference for tie-dye t-shirts. Several years ago, I had a job where I could commute nearly door-to-door on public transit. The driver for my local bus from home was stereotypical vet. Crew cut hair, hat with his unit patch, years served, medals, etc. He was very grumpy. You could say, "Hi, nice day," when you boarded and get a grunt and, "I'm still working so it's not." He'd even do it the little old ladies, who he was extra grumpy about because he had to extend the disabled ramp. On day as I get on and paying my fare, he was muttering to himself, "Were you speaking to me? No, I don't talk to ducking commie hippies who hate this country." Note: this is the early 2000s, not the late 60s. I sat down, super pissed at him, but I stomped the heat down. Because of course the best responses are served frozen solid. So, at the next stop I came up to him and very quietly whispered in his ear. I'm a veteran. 5 years in the Air Force. 4 of my uncles served as well. Each one in a different service. 2 in Vietnam. 2 cousins of my generation also served. One was on the Navy cruiser that was the first to cross the Libyan line of death. The other was an Army chaplain's assistant in Desert Storm. Don't you ever talk to me, or anyone, like that again. He never talked to any writer ever again. The next story is titled Am I the A-hole for kicking someone out of my house? I have severe ADHD and dyslexia, and while I did pass this text through a corrector, forgive me if there are any grammar or syntax mistakes. I live alone in a relatively big house, differently from my friends who live in apartments. Thus, we end up hanging together at my house most of the time due to the larger space available. This last weekend, a few of them came over, just to have some drinks, eat some barbecue and generally just chat. A friend of mine, Dave, decided to introduce us to his girlfriend of 2 months and brought her over. Which is totally fine, she seemed like a nice lady and all that. However, at one point, she went to the kitchen to do something and when she came back, asked why there was a list of chores on the fridge's door. Due to my ADHD, oftentimes I forget to do small tasks that need to be done around the house. Since I really despise dirty places, I put a whiteboard on the fridge where I write the tasks that need to be done that day per week and if I've done them yet. It is the mechanism I found works best for me to actually do whatever I need. It's understandable that people ask, so I told her. I assumed she'd just understand and let it go. However, that was not the case at all. She snorted and said that if I couldn't remember chores, I was nothing more than a man-child. Look, anyone can think whatever they want from me. But I will not accept anyone treating me like that inside my house. This is something that's still a sore spot for me. My friends know that. So, I asked both her and Dave to get the hell out of my house. Well, they did. Apparently, Dave thinks I'm an awe for the way I treated his girlfriend. The rest of my friend told me she was way out of line, but Dave is a good friend of mine, and maybe I should have thought my words through. That does make me feel guilty. Am I the a-hole here? Comment said not the a-hole. I can't remember anything without putting it on a list. This has nothing whatsoever to do with my maturity level. If it was something within my power to change, I would. She insulted you in your own home. She 100% deserved to be kicked out of your house. Another comment said not the a-hole. If you want you can talk to Dave and try to figure out if he's just backing his girlfriend out of misplaced loyalty or embarrassment, but that's only if you want to try to preserve the friendship. As for the girlfriend, barring a sincere apology, I wouldn't subject myself to her bizarre and random cruelty again. The next story is titled I spent a year playing Baby Shark on repeat on my sister's Spotify so it would be the #1 song on her Spotify Wrapped. My 2 sisters and I have a good thing going. We each pay for and share several streaming services. It's a great system that has enabled all of us to have access to most major streaming services for around $20 per month each. Last December, my younger sister was upset that one of her top songs on Spotify was a song that I like and listen to a lot. She brought it up with me and essentially told me to stop listening to Spotify so much because it was technically her account, and she didn't want my songs to appear in her Spotify Wrapped. I told her that is not how our system works and if she wanted to back out, she could. Otherwise, I am free to use it as much as I want because I pay for it, too. She wasn't upset enough to back out of our agreement, but she did make a point to start watching Netflix, Hulu, etc. using my profile instead of hers just to annoy me. When I brought it up with her, she used my own words against me and told me that we're all sharing, right? Fine. Cue the revenge. My sister works at a credit card processing company and has to keep her phone in a locker while at work as a safeguard to prevent the employees from saving people's credit card information. I, on the other hand, work from home. So, for the entirety of 2022, I would open Spotify, turn my volume down, and play that god-awful Baby Shark song by Pink Fong on repeat. We're talking at least 4 times a day every workday, sometimes as many as 30 times. A few days ago, to my younger sister's dismay, Baby Shark was her #1 song for the year by a long shot. The #2 song wasn't even close. It had around 1/4 of the listens Baby Shark did. Pink Fong was her #1 artist, too. She was definitely more upset than amused that I had rendered her Spotify Wrapped unshareable, but she did find some humor in it, and she appreciated my dedication. My older sister and I certainly found it hilarious. The best part? It sparked a conversation that ended with my younger sister and I essentially making a truce and agreeing to relax a bit and not intentionally annoy the other person. The next story is titled Accidental Petty Revenge on Ex. I decided to go to homecoming with my friends because I thought it'd be really fun. I bought a 2-piece homecoming fit a couple weeks beforehand and showed it off to one of my friends. This friend proceeded to tell me that this girl that was not very favored in our school, for personal reasons, was going to wear the same thing. I told her there was no way I wanted to go to homecoming matching with her, so she suggested I try on her old homecoming dress. It fit pretty well, and I fell in love with it immediately, so I went with it. Fast forward to homecoming, I walk in with my friend, we turn in our tickets and put glow sticks on our wrists. We're chatting up our friend group in the corner when one of my friends points out my ex and his new girlfriend, my ex-best friend, had arrived. Being the sweetheart she was, ex-best friend came up to me and gave me a hug, giving me quite a fake, "It's so nice to see you." My ex-best friend, and the entirety of my friend group watched as we hugged and came to the realization that we were wearing the exact same dress. My ex got all mad about it, talking crap to his new girlfriend and his friends about how she did that on purpose because she wanted to make you look bad, blah blah blah. I just found it rather funny. The best part was later during one of the slow dances, a guy that my ex considered to be his exaggerated, mortal enemy, came up to me and asked if he could dance with me. I accepted his offer, all the while my ex looked up from his perfect girlfriend to watch my new love story unfold. The jealousy that burned in his eyes keeps me going every day and made the dance all the better. The next story is titled I Ignored a Guy for a Month and a Half. There is a guy involved with what I do for work, and he has pranked and picked on me for years. Putting deer nuts in my gas tank on my truck sort of thing. Anyway, he left out of state for a month and a half, so I decided to ignore his calls and texts until he got back. It was the most perfect revenge ever. He has a bad case of FOMO, fear of missing out. His messages on my answering machine got angrier and angrier. We laughed so much at them. He didn't really miss out on anything cause the owner of the project talked to him all the time. The next story is titled I Said No and I Meant No. First time making one of these, woo. This is going to be a pretty mild event compared to some of the stuff on here, but it's something that completely caught me off guard. For a little context, there were 2 of us working at the front desk the night this happened. It was later in the evening, and a couple guests walk in, each with their own individual room. My coworker started checking the first guest, we'll call him Mr. Fancy Coat, and I greeted and took care of the second guest, Mr. Smiles Kindly. Fancy was staying for 3 nights, while Smiles was staying for 7. All in all, a completely normal check-in for us both. It took me a little while to get Smiles Kindly in. He had asked for an upgrade to his room, and even though he wasn't any form of Precious Metal Club member, I was happy to check. But I wasn't able to since his stay was for so long and we simply had no other types of rooms that were unbooked for that many days. Which he was very kind and compassionate about. However, as I was handing him his keycards, Fancy Coat turned to him and asked, "Hey, you're not a Precious Metal member, are you? Can I have your points?" Mr. Kindly said that was okay with him, and Mr. Coat slid his membership card with his number across the desk at me, asking if I could put his membership number on Mr. Kindly's reservation. Now, stuff like this happens to front desk workers. We get reasonable requests, out of nowhere requests, and sometimes really weird things are asked from us. With me, I'm absolutely okay with people asking. It never hurts to at least ask, and this was no different at first. Unfortunately, it's breaking a lot of the rules to do something like that between guests. That's mostly because if your metallic club number is put into the computers at where I work, it will change the name and all personal information of the old guest, in this case, Mr. Kindly, to that of the membership guest, Mr. Coat. So I started explaining to him that I unfortunately couldn't do. Mr. Coat. Yes, you can. Immediately I was taken aback. But I've been cut off lots before working here, so I managed to collect myself within a second or so, just bluntly saying, no, can't. Mr. Coat. Why? I could easily feel my face flustering at this point, but at least now I could start explaining why. Adding your membership will change his name to yours, which we can't do for Mr. Coat. That doesn't matter. Me. Yes, it. Mr. Coat. I've done it before. All of this took maybe like 15 seconds. By this point, I only able to stammer slightly while he stared blankly at me, which I have never done at work before. I was being cut off so much that I couldn't even finish my own thoughts, let alone my own sentences, so my brain was just flatlining at this point on what to possibly say. After another solid 7 seconds of me being completely lost for words, I managed to feign a little bit of ignorance. Me. With all due respect, I have never done this before, and do not feel comfortable attempting this without my boss's permission. Mr. Coat. Oh well, that's different then. That's fine. My brain screaming silently. How is that fine and not the actual reason? I hadn't even finished up Mr. Kindly's check-in through this. So I finished him up, and my coworker and I directed them up to their rooms. My face feeling unbelievably warm the whole time. Thankfully, so far, my shift isn't over yet as I write this, that's where it ended. Thankfully no big drama, no heavy arguing. They left the desk without too many more words apart from a nice thank you from Mr. Kindly. I've had past guests not believe me when I've told them no before, but never like this. So adamant in something that's such a massive breach of hotel policy, company policy, and safety for both Mr. Kindly and himself. If I had gone through with changing Mr. Kindly's name to Mr. Coates, then for 4 days we would have a guest checked in under a completely different name. Even if I had added Mr. Kindly's name back to the reservation under an accompaniment, his personal information would still be gone. The receipt he would have gotten would not contain his info, but the personal information of someone else. Which is a huge breach of several policies all by itself. If there was a fire and we had to account for the people in the hotel, there'd be a problem. If Mr. Kindly lost something, there'd be a problem. Even if we had to call him, there'd be a problem. Add to that the overarching fact that our hotel just doesn't allow a stranger to put his membership on the reservation of another stranger to begin with. I know this is a small lesson that's repeated here a lot. But if you go to a hotel and we tell you, no, to a request you have, 95 times out of 100, we know what we're talking about. The next story is titled Funny Story. About 2 hours ago a guest walks in looking really ramped up, like he's talking really fast. I don't want to call people a crackhead because I don't know for a fact, I don't know him. But I guess he's a rewards member and the card he had on file is a green dot thing, one of those weird dollar store banks. He said he didn't activate it and needs to get in his room because his baby is in car. I'm so confused as to why you didn't bring the baby inside with you lol, and I told him we have Wi-Fi so he can activate the card in the lobby. I guess that wasn't good enough, he needed to get in the room because of his baby I guess, so he pulls his wallet out and flashes like 2K at me for some reason. I said you will need to put a deposit on the room for me to let you in, so he did it. Then he walks in with a full-grown man, no baby at all. It was all a lie. There's a number that I looked up that you can easily activate this card in a minute. I have no idea what his intentions were or anything, or why he is lying about a baby. Then the other guy locked his keys inside his car, so they're both at the desk asking for supplies and asking me if I have AAA. I do, but you just showed me all that money, just call them. I left a bit ago and heard them talking about just busting a window in the car. Lol, weird people, I don't understand the point of all that. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe to the channel and post some bear emojis in the comments.